like everyone who is interested in cloud security. Because when you talk about virtual bank, it's all in the cloud, right? We utilize more than 90% of cloud infrastructure to build our bank. So to be one of the lucky one to be able to launch third in Hong Kong. So we wanted to share, like, how do we achieve? When you say about cloud, it means that it's 99% availability. So when you have that much availability, means that your attack surface will go up, right? It means that everyone are able to see your infrastructure. But then as a Welab cybersecurity team, we always walk an extra mile to actually protect our cloud infrastructure, to make sure that you have confidence to put your money in our bank, to grow your money with our bank. So without further ado, let me introduce myself first. So who am I? I'm a retired Captain Samuel. I serve in a military, like what Richie has said. I served for more than 14 years as a radio communication, mostly radio communications department. I hold various positions from radio troop commander to a second in command and a defense advisor. And then my passion has always been in the cybersecurity. I've started hacking since I was a kid, since I first got my computer. So that is where my passion starts. And so along my career, I actually go a lot into networking and radio communication, HF, VHF, how to support the front line and stuff like that. And then in the same time, I obtain all the security certifications that I find very valuable. And on the second line, you can see those are the places that I've served before. And I've graduated from the National Defense University of Malaysia. So that's how I got into the army. And I used to be invited as a speaker in various events you can see in the list down there. All right, that's a little bit about me. So without further ado, let's go into cloud security. All right, this is the agenda for today. We want to talk about virtual bank. Well, that's why we say it's the future is now, because traditional banks, you have to open up an account, you have to be physically there, you have to bring all the documents and stuff like that. So you might ask, what's the difference with virtual bank and a traditional bank, right? I mean, I have mobile apps, I can transfer my money from the phone as well, but what we want to say the future is now is because we are moving towards the future. And of course, the challenges is how do you authenticate a person when he's not physically here? So that's why that is what we want to bring value to the banking industry. So as you can see right here, that's how fast you can open up an account, all right? So you can, you have your details and then snap your HKID and put in your details and stuff. So it seems very easy, seamlessly for you to open up an account. But then we try to walk an extra mile to make sure that the authentication process works well. That's why we have identity verification. So to open up an account, it takes less than a few minutes. That's why we want to bring value to the banking industry. So instead of that, we actually have all these infrastructures all mostly in the cloud. It's only a few stuff that, because it's regulated, so we have to have a small data center as well. We cannot be fully on the cloud. But then that brings, the positive side is we can actually have a dual control and we avoid a single point of failure. So I read Richie's post on Cloud Security Alliance that since everything is moving into cloud now, and it has been many years already, so these are the questions that security specialists will ask, that how can we secure our application and infrastructure on a cloud environment? How do we support multi-cloud a multi-cloud environment, and how do we make use of containers. And the last one, it's what I want to hit on today. It's any standard can be used in cloud security assessment and audit. So we are very confident saying that Welab Bank is beyond the normal banking industry standard, because we are actually being audited, heavily audited and heavily regulated by HKM. And I have a lot of respect with HKM because they push us to the edge. They push us a lot. They even want us to follow the guidelines of National Security Agency by the NSA. So NSA has actually published a paper that we can follow for auditing our organization, and they have done a brilliant job, how they organize the information for us to actually follow the framework and guideline to make sure that our cloud infrastructure is secure. So today we are trying to solve a few of these questions, and along the way, the answers should come along the way. All right. So why do we use cloud? Of course, I'll go through this very fast because it's efficient. It saves a lot of costs. It saves time, and you don't have to build your own data center from scratch. You can just go in and just turn on your infrastructure. It's very easy. And well, if that saves time, means that your security level will be much higher. And of course, it's reliable. It's 99.9% available. And it supports a lot of environments: Windows, Linux, containers, virtualization, and stuff you can think about. And the best thing is it's about the disaster recovery, like what we want to answer the question above. That is, we're using multi-cloud environment. You have AWS, you have GCP. So we have to actually use a different vendors, because if, let's say, AWS crash, and we have GCP as our disaster recovery. And of course, the best thing is the scalability. It means that you can save a lot of cost, save a lot of planning time. You don't have to overspec your servers. Let's say if your servers hit like 80% utilization, then only you can add on RAM, you can add on CPU straight away, you can add on storage. So it means that you save a lot of cost. You don't have to buy it first, and a lot of resources will go into waste, right? And of course, the manageability, that is for a single cloud. And then cost effective, like I said just now. So to bring value to all the audience here, I believe that the audience has from vendors, from in-house, from all, we want to list out all the pain points that we have actually faced. And of course, it should bring a lot of opportunity for all the vendors, that you know that these problems and pain points, if you can solve this, 8 virtual banks are coming up. This is what you're here for, all right? So running a multi-cloud environment, we need a lot of extra effort to establish a clear cloud governance. It comes from access control, and the most problem we had is access control. That's why it leads to the second point. The access control is decentralized. It's not that you can build all your applications in one single cloud. You need your core banking system to be in the data center, and you have a lot of SaaS application and stuff like that. So they will come from different various sources, and the access control is really a pain point, because we need to have a centralized management. So that's what we are doing. So when it comes to a centralized access control, it leads to another problem, which is a role segregation, challenges, and management. It's very easy to override some roles, to over provisioning some access rights. That's the pain point, and that leads to another thing called vendor risk. It means that a lot of vendors have some extra rights. We are working very hard to actually manage them, because we need to balance out between convenience and security because, hey, the vendor needs to work. But then if you don't give them these rights, how are they going to work? So the cybersecurity team always walk an extra mile. If we give you extra rights, we have extra control. If we cannot prevent you from having extra rights, we have detective controls, we have response controls all in place. And then that leads to another one, which is a control coverage. How many people you can control? How many vendors you have? You have a lot of vendors. You have vendors from different places, different countries, stuff like that. So your control coverage will be a pain point. It means that some parts that you might not even know it exists. That's why the cybersecurity team must always walk an extra mile to make sure the coverage is 100%. Of course, if your coverage is not 100%, it means that your monitoring will not be 100%. That's another problem. How many people here can be confident saying that, hey, I covered everything 100%, not even one subnet, it's not under my coverage? Well, and then that leads to attack surface. If you're not sure where is your monitoring, your coverage, your attack surface will be bigger. Well, attack surface will be bigger, the complexity will go up, right? And once you hit that point, you need more people to help you. And we have a lot of pain points that we lack knowledge personnel. So I guess for audience here, this should bring a lot of value to you, especially the vendors. And let's lead on to the next part is whenever I talk about on the previous slide, this picture comes into my mind. Well, the CISO has a lot of problems managing the whole cybersecurity framework. So I think this picture demonstrates that how a CISO works and what are the problems they are facing. So the internet has a lot of threats, a lot of threat actors and stuff. That's your firewall, and you have to protect your castle. And your SOC is right there, but then you have to put on some stairs for your vendors to come in, you see. So this picture should demonstrate everything. All right. So of course, there are those advantages to help platform unity and strength of a single cloud. It means that if you use AWS, you have everything together. You can manage your internal firewall, you can manage your virtual machines, servers, your containers and stuff like that. And resource availability, it's always available. You can just get on a server. If the load is too high, you can just fire up a server straight away. And of course, backup, recovery, and incident. Well, I wish to share one incident that we had before, which is the AWS key leakage. Well, AWS has this function that monitors that the key in your environment. It means that the access key that you are using, if it is leaked into the internet, it will actually alert you. And then, of course, as an in-house cybersecurity team, we have a response procedure. We go up and then we reset the key straight away to block the access straight away. So what happened was one of our vendors actually accidentally leaked some small parts of the code out into GitHub. And then AWS has this detection monitoring. So we went straight up, and within minutes, we actually blocked the access already. We rotate the key. And that happens one day before Chinese New Year. So everyone was drunk, stuff like that. And then, but we still managed to fix it within minutes. So the advantages include a very uniform and secure endpoints because all the images are actually, they are hardened already, server images, endpoint images, and you have your whole Active Directory in the sky. That helps the availability, and then it's easier to manage. All right. Well, and then you ask me what are the security disadvantages, right? So this is the picture that came into my mind. So there's no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. So, and then you ask, then there will be a lot of vulnerabilities, right? So how do we actually solve it, how do we manage it and stuff like that. That's why I want to bring up this National Security Agency by the United States of America. They have published this framework where I wish to share to everyone, and everyone should follow this. And that's how Welab Bank were being audited. We were being audited based on this framework. So I've shared the link down below. You guys can have a look, and hopefully it should help your organization as well, no matter you come from banking industry or the other industry, all right? Well, how do the NSA cloud security framework they organize? They organize all the cloud components into 4. As I always say, access control is the most important part. So it's IAM, and then the second part is compute. Compute will include virtualization and containerization. And then we have networking. The best part is we have security groups, you have internal firewalls, you can manage your firewall much more easier. And of course, you have your storage, your database, your MS SQL, your S3 buckets and stuff like that. So these are the 4 main components of the cloud. And then we have cloud encryption and key management. So when it comes to key management, I want to emphasize data sensitivity. This data sensitivity is the most important part. I can share one story here. One of the engineers asked me like, what encryption to use. So I was saying that bare minimum it should be AES 256 or the best you can go 512. It's fine. But then the database encryption standard actually supports up to 512. So I say, why not? Let's go to this AES 512. But then, yeah, I made a mistake. So in the staging environment, when we try using that encryption, it actually slows down a lot of the performance. So the crucial point is here. You can use the best encryption, a higher one is harder to crack, stuff like that. But as a security personnel, you must always remember about operations. If you are too secure, people will have a hard time to work. So we then have to go down into AES 256, which is still very much secure. You need a few million years to crack, and it's in compliance. But then, of course, we always want to walk extra mile, but then the point here is you have to actually remember operations. You don't want to slow the performance down because of your security problems, all right? So on the second point, all the CSP cloud service provider have actually key management service in place, so we can utilize like things like AWS Cloud HSM because they are FIPS compliant, so you can use it. And of course, we always try to avoid single point of failure. So we will use HSM in AWS, but we have our own hardware HSM as well in the data center for our core banking system, very crucial financial transaction stuff. That we actually avoid a lot of single point of failure, because encryption and key management is very important when you have to rotate the keys, but sometimes rotating keys will bring you a lot of disasters. All right. So I bet everyone from the cloud community will know this shared cloud security responsibilities already. You should have seen this diagram before. So private cloud, it means that you have to do the configuration yourself, application, environment, operating system, virtualization, all by yourself. So, but then it comes to public cloud, you have IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So the blue ones are the one that is, the responsibility is by the vendor and the service provider. All right, so you will have a clear understanding of what you should look at. And of course, there are the 3 points right down here is the shared responsibilities: threat detection, incident response, and patch management. All right. So NSA's framework categorized 4 threat actors: malicious CSP administrators, which is the cloud the cloud vendor itself, CSP, and malicious customer cloud administrator, which is the cloud users, which is ourselves. And of course, the basics, cybercriminal, nation state, sponsored actors, script kiddies, they try to exploit you and stuff like that. Weak authentication. And then often untrained and neglectful cloud administrators. So out of the 4 threat actors, do you see they have one common thing? It is they utilize and they exploit privileged credentials, and that leads to the basic, the access control, right? So that's why I always say access control is the most important part. Okay, so you can categorize your threat actors into these 4 categories, and then you better know how to govern your cybersecurity, right? And then we want to bring up all this, which is the vulnerabilities and mitigation. The NSA framework also split into 4: misconfig, poor access control, shared tenancy vulnerabilities, and supply chain vulnerabilities. The one towards the right is that the occurrence is much easy. It's easier to happen, but then the sophistication is much lower. So, and then it goes along the way. All right, so now the next 4 slides is what we want to bring value to the cloud community. So when it comes to misconfiguration, what risks will you face? You will face a lot of exposure of sensitive data. You have data accessible to all public cloud users, and some of your data can be accessible through this Elasticsearch. And that's why if you have misconfig, you have default username and password, and you have a lot of problems, all right? So what do we do to mitigate all this? We always think about defense in depth. It means that multiple controls to secure one thing. We always think that one control will fail. It will fail eventually. So we always have a second control in place. If we cannot prevent, we detect. If we cannot detect, we respond. So what we did was we utilized a lot of cloud services and security policies, third-party tools like Twistlog, Nessus, Checksmart, stuff like that, to avoid all these things to happen. Like secure coding practices can actually detect a lot of like hard-coded credentials in the code, and then you help. And then of course we have zero trust model. Our SS logs are audited, and to reduce this risk, it's always better to have DLP solutions in place. And then RSA fraud action. RSA fraud action is one of our best tools to help us monitor any leakages, anyone who cloned our domain, and any credit cards of Welab banks. We actually, if Welab bank credit cards was leaked into darknet or the public internet, our fraud action is in place to detect that, and then we have response procedure in place. So the second one will be poor access control. What are your risks? Of course, unauthorized access, single-factor authentication, you can bypass, and the worst part is hard-coded API keys exposed into the internet. So of course, the mitigation will be multi-factor, MFA, always MFA. And then disable weak authentication protocol and cloud-based access control. Like AWS, they already have the IAM module in place. You can utilize that a lot. And of course, API is another can of worms. So it is better to have tokenization to make sure that your API keys, your API calls are all secure. And of course, detection effort, we have SOCs to monitor our application logs. That will cover all our SaaS application and our SaaS provider. And of course, shared tenancy vulnerabilities. This is another kind of worms, which means that when you use cloud, there's a lot of virtualization in place. So there were a lot of POCs already saying that the hypervisor breakout attack means that the hackers can actually they break into a virtual machine and they're able to break out from the virtual machine and execute command on the host machine. And when that happens, disaster happens. It means that, let's say, virtual machine belongs to bank A, and when they break out from the hypervisor, it will burn into other banks or other organizations as well, because they are controlling the host machine. So, and then of course, you lead same to container breakout as well. You can break out from a container, that will lead to disaster. And that, of course, also lead to privilege escalation and compromise and data breach. So, of course, the mitigation will be third-party tool. You have external firewall, you have Twistlog, and to scan like code scanning and runtime environment to scan the libraries and stuff like that. And of course, you need encryption and data at rest and in transit, cloud-based access control, and of course, your monitoring and your response procedure. All right. So the last one will be supply chain vulnerabilities. Of course, the risk, insider attack. Insider attack is the hardest threat that cybersecurity team has to face, because insider attack, the insiders has a lot of roles. They have a lot of assets. That's why they can do a lot of malicious stuff. So we need defense in that. We need to monitor them. We need to make sure that they access at the time that they claim, and they claim who are they and stuff like that. And then so another part is intentional backdoor in the hardware and software. How do you make sure that your developers don't actually slip one line of codes that can prepare a backdoor to them, can give them access, or maybe transfer money to their own account, you see? So that's why we always want to emphasize DevSecOps. So this is an opportunity to the vendors. DevSecOps is very important because we need to make sure that the developers don't do things, don't do malicious things. So how do we control that is we have our change management. So every release of a new mobile app or a new component or a new release has to go through security and has to prove that their checkmark, the secure coding practices are met, library vulnerabilities are scanned, and then runtime environment vulnerabilities are scanned. They have to fix every vulnerabilities, critical vulnerabilities, and then only the security team will let them pass to make sure that they don't have malicious intent, they slip codes into the release. So DevSecOps is very important, and it'll be an opportunity for all the vendors. Of course, vulnerability management, because you have your infrastructure. That's why we use a lot of change management to control them. All right. Another thing I want to emphasize is your critical service provider. So it's always it's crucial to have a playbook in place to make sure that your critical service provider are compliant to their SLA. So the most important thing is now it's not that your organization is hacked, it's their organization is hacked. So let's say AWS was hacked. So someone will ask, hey, Welab Bank, AWS was hacked. So how do you respond to that? So of course you need to have a playbook in place. You need to, be in contact with their PR, be in contact with their information security team, so you know what is going on. If is their data breach involved your bank as well? So you really have to know. So during the peacetime, it's always good to maintain a connection with them, and that is why we need to have a critical service provider drill, right? So of course, SOC monitoring and threat intelligence is always important. So and of course, never forget, there's always a DDoS that happens along the way. The previous one was GitHub, hits around 1.3 terabit per second. So year 2020, it got even worse. It hits up to 2.3 terabyte per second. That's an enormous volume of data. And it did bring down AWS as well. They have to spend several days to respond to that volumetric attack. All right. And of course, after we talk about NSA framework, we want to share about our SOC and NOC as well. The most important part for your security monitoring is your security operations center. They have to always talk to the network operations center, or we call it digital operating center. That's why we have a framework in place that, because sometimes, of course, like you say, zero-day attack or maybe a Bitcoin mining, the SOC won't be the first one to detect. The network operations center will, because the CPU utilization will go up, the network bandwidth will go up, and then so they should have a shared workflow and a ticketing services. So for SOC to actually look into as well. So that is how we have this framework in place to make sure that Welab Bank is always secure. So for things like this, let's say we have the most important part is threshold. Like let's say a high CPU usage for let's say 80% to 100%. So the threshold will be let's say 10 minutes. So below 10 minutes, the SOC won't look at it because it might be some other operational fault or human errors. But then the threshold is, let's say, after 10 minutes, the SOC should come into place because it might be a malware attack, it might be a ransomware, it might be a Bitcoin mining in place. So that is why the SOC and NOC should work as a team. All right, so since I've served in the Army, I bring the idea of how we do our defense condition. So we have DEFCON in place, defense readiness condition. So DEFCON 4, 5 will be your BAU. You have some people scanning your infrastructures. Some people is trying to send phishing emails, spam and stuff like that. So that will be DEFCON 4. DEFCON 4 will be increased intelligence watch, let's say above normal readiness. Let's say we receive a new phishing emails and we'll call up a DEFCON 4 because attackers always use different tactics, different style of phishing attacks. That's why we have to increase our intelligence watch. So when we call into DEFCON 3, it means that there are some attacks in place, but did not affect the overall business operations. But then if we call DEFCON 3, it means the security team has to mobilize within 1 hour. They have to be back in the office within 1 hour. Of course, we have 24 hours duty officer roster, but then they have to be back. They have to be mobilized within 1 hour. And of course, we will activate our CIRT, which is a cyber incident response team, when we hit DEFCON 2, where the attack has an overall effect on our business operations. So this is how we organize Welab Bank. I run the security team like in the Army. So, yep. And of course, if DEFCON 2, the security team will be deployed 24/7, and external IR team should be mobilized within 1 hour. So this is the opportunity for external incident response provider. You can provide services like this, and you should help a lot of organizations to make sure that their security are in place. Okay, so these are the value that we want to squeeze out. These are the essence for today's presentation. We always say back to basic, exactly like the Army. Back to basic, the small things matter. So how do we want to present this to you all? It is the basic AD controls, basic Active Directory controls. They have a lot of functions. Where I used to be a pen tester, I assess my clients' infrastructure. A lot of them or maybe most of them, never utilize all these AD functions like you can actually control certain domain users to actually go into that machine only. And that will actually reduce a lot of attack services. Or you can stop a domain user from logging into your domain network. Let's say you allow them to go into the network from 9 to 5 only. So of course, you cannot fix the whole thing, but you already reduce your attack surfaces. So always remember, back to basics. The second one is the awareness of your business users. So how do you know your business users are start to aware about phishing attacks and stuff? Well, I want to compliment the Welab CEO because he got a bit paranoid already. Every spam email he will forward to our cybersecurity team. He will forward to us and we will do the investigation. And the reason here I say paranoid is some one of a few users received email saying that, hey, Trello is connected to Welab Bank. And all of them thought it's a phishing email and then they send it to us. So a little bit of paranoia is good for your business users, for your security team. So because BEC, the business email compromise, is still the #1 attack in Hong Kong. All right. And cloud governance, of course, back to basics, your policies, your procedures, your guidelines, you have to make sure they comply. And of course, monitoring for shadow IT operations, insider attack, access control. So we have tools in place. It is always good to have tools in place to detect a new machine or new machine was deleted, new machine was created in your cloud environment. So we have tools in place to do that. And we want to complement our SOC as well. We walk an extra mile to detect malicious command, like let's say in your environment, someone is running wget command or PowerShell -nop -exec bypass and stuff like that. All the malicious command that used by the attackers will actually be detected by our SOCs. So this is the basic stuff. And of course, the regulators and the law enforcers, they are your best friend. They will help you to transfer your reputational risks because every cyber attack, everything you should report to them. And of course, that will transfer the risk because if you don't report, you are not in compliance. So if anything happens, someone will come back to question you. Hey, did you report to Hong Kong Police Force? Did you report to HKM? And that is risk transference. So of course, Hong Kong Police Force walk an extra mile as well. They provide vulnerability scanning, and we actually utilize that as well to make sure our to utilize our tax money as well. So that will help us to reduce our reputational risk. It means that, hey, our infrastructure are being scanned by Hong Kong Police Force as well. Not only that we are scanning, they are scanning from the external. Okay. So the last one we want to emphasize is walking an extra mile. The cybersecurity team in Welab always walk an extra mile. So for Active Directory defense, you can actually head into Red Forest architecture. It means that it's not like a domain admin can go through all the environments. We actually follow this enhanced security administrative environment. Desktop admin can only go into desktop and to help to do the help desk stuff, but they cannot touch our server environment. And of course, the server environment cannot touch our we call it the God environment, the domain admin, the enterprise admin. So they are all in a different levels. All right. And then you have to make sure that the root, the forest root should be separated correctly. So if you are a vendor, you are helping out the organization to organize their AD, to build up their infrastructure, I think you should provide services to build a Red Forest architecture. And of course, the second point will be the first and second bank has a lot of incident where their website are being cloned, and then they report to HKM. So Welab Bank walk an extra mile, having the RSA fraud action domain monitoring in place. We detect by keywords Welab Bank or any words that has similar to Welab, W3, L4, B, and stuff like that. So we monitor the domain of the whole world. If someone tries to mimic Welab Bank, we will have detection in place and we will respond immediately. And recently, we also have this mobile apps detection. Recently, we have incident. Someone downloaded our Welab Bank app, the Android app, and then re-upload back into the third-party app store. And we found some malicious intent by them. So our RSA monitoring are in place. We detected and then we respond immediately. And of course, phishing site and credit card numbers as well in darknet or in public internet. So to walk an extra mile, we start something called a continuous red teaming, red, blue, and purple teaming. So the continuous red teaming is it's not only that we are doing a red teaming by external vendors, we are doing red teaming by ourselves. So the best win-win situation will be internal red teaming plus external red teaming. So let both red team fight, and then the benefit will be for the bank. So external red teaming are very important. External pen testers are very important. If goes along with internal red teaming as well. And of course, I know most of your organization should have SOC in place. Well, you should beat up your SOCs. Like what we do in Welab is sometimes we will just throw some attacker tools like Mimikatz and stuff like that in our PC and see how fast they respond to the incident. It means we create this attack simulation. So why I have to beat up my SOC? Because during early stage of our deployment back in January, when I was trying my SOC, I throw some attacker tools. So okay, they are able to detect, but then they respond to me after 3 to 4 hours. I was so angry that time. I said unacceptable. So I have to beat them up, and then now they actually fulfill their SLA already within 30 minutes, the detection, and then they'll call us up. So and then we'll have our response procedure by our team. Okay, so as a cybersecurity professional, you should always be proactively monitoring the cyber news, and you should always be passionate. And like what I explained just now, critical service provider drill. And other cybersecurity drill as well. Your malware drill, your DDoS drill. You can get external vendors to help you out to do a DDoS attack on your staging environment, and test your SOC as well. 2 birds in 1 stone. And of course, always act, never react. You can react, but always be proactive. That's how the army way of working. All right. So to end this up, I'd like to urge all the cyber defenders, you are always fighting an uphill battle, because the threat actors, no one is policing them. They can attack you anytime. And of course, you can say, oh, your cyber defense is good, but then how long can you hold the attack? Well, if they keep attacking you, one day you'll collapse as well. Exactly like this slide you're looking right now. So we would say that you can never be the number 1 in cybersecurity. If you say you're number 1, you're too bold. Even like NSA or CIA, they got hacked as well. So what do we advise as a cybersecurity personnel myself? You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun your competitors. So you should be safe. So the point here we want to bring up is don't be the last one. in cybersecurity. And don't try to be the first one, because being the first one, you're inviting more attackers to come to you. All right. So as a Welab cybersecurity team, this is our motivation. The more we sweat during peace, the less we bleed during war, because like it or not, cyber attack is going to happen to your organization. You cannot avoid that. It's going to happen. So always have assume hack mindset to protect your environment. So that will conclude our presentation today. So any questions by the audience?
So firstly, thanks a lot for Samuel's presentation. It's really, really wonderful. For the meantime, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Harry can admit you to speak in your mic. So, anyone got any questions? So, maybe let me because of the interesting topics, there are something which bring to me here is from in a virtual bank environment, what majority of the applications actually will be in the cloud environment. But is there anything that cannot be implemented in the cloud environment?
Well, we mostly utilize all the SaaS applications. So SaaS application has a less risk, because it's the risk is transferred to the vendors. So to answer your questions, we try to avoid building things in our own environment, because you have more infrastructure in place, means you have to bear the risk, you have to protect them. So it is always best to transfer as much risk out from your own, and that will be help you to easier to stay in compliance with the regulators. Yep.
Interesting. So it's as you mentioned that you really rely a lot on the cloud vendors' products or solutions.
Yep.
So what technical security solutions you wish the vendor will provide, which may not be available right now? What are your wish? Is there anything that you wish them to have something that will be able to help?
Good question. Very good question. So like I said, we utilize a lot of SaaS application and stuff, and then we have our own infrastructure as well. So that's why we have two SOCs in place, two security operations center. One is to monitor our cloud applications, SaaS applications. Another one is to monitor our infrastructures, our endpoints, our servers, and stuff like that. So to answer your question, we really wish that the vendors can work with us more, work with our SOC more, because a lot of logs that we receive from different SaaS application has actually a lot of different formats. So it took us a lot of effort to actually to unite them. The logs that because we rely a lot on the logs to aid our detection response. So we really need the vendors to work with us to provide us a clean log, so to actually improve our detection effort.
Yep. That's something which if some of the vendors, some of the people are from vendors, then they should hear this word. So they should think about it. Yeah, that's really, really important. Anyone want to ask any questions? I think if that's if you have any questions, you can ask. This is your time that you can ask. I think another point that we in the cybersecurity industry that we encounter is we don't have sufficient specialist in really knowing how to implement or how to use how to look into the cloud environment. So what skill sets or you think the cybersecurity specialists right now should learn first in order to uplift their skills, in order to work in the future environment, in the cloud environment?
Well, I will always say that number one is to have passion. That's and then it's always to have an attacker mindset. When you always have this attacker mindset, you will know how to protect yourself. Well, the defenders' work will be a lot mundane because they have to look a lot on the logs, the alerts, and handling. But the defenders should have that attacker sense as well. Like, you know, once you know how the robbers is going to rob you, you know how to protect yourself. So, of course, to help the young people to grow their passion, I think CSA is doing a great job. You have CTF, capture the flag, and then a lot of like services like Hack the Box. They can treat it like a game. I mean, like hacking is a game. That's how I got my passion from. When I hack into the Unity network, that's what I was happy about that when I was a student. Yeah. So, and then that passion will actually bring up more cybersecurity professionals.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the very important points. But how about those like old guys like me? Right now, it seems that we move to the cloud environment. We have to know something like, say, is it cloud assessment skills that's important? Do we need to know about that particular part, or Docker security, or anything else you think would be useful?
So there's no such thing as old in cybersecurity because it's very dynamic. It moves very fast. You have to keep learning, and then that keeps us young, though.
Yeah.
So, yep. And then new services like Docker container and stuff like that, and then new attacks will emerge, and then POCs, more CVE. So it's always good to always keep learning, keep attacking. You cannot learn to hack. You need to hack to learn. So find a safe environment, play with it, then you understand how the attack works. So you should know how to defend it.
Wow, great. Let's see. Although originally I thought of closing the section, but one of our So there's one question that Alan asked. So if customer has concern on doing encryption or decryption to their data stored on cloud, because of cloud service providers encryption key, what is the best approach to tackle it?
Wait, let me see. If customer has concern doing encryption, okay. Because cloud provider has the encryption key, what is the best approach? Alan, can you repeat your question? I'm not very sure how customer has concern on doing encryption decryption to them. Okay.
Are you able to speak in your mic? So I think maybe what he wants to know is I think it's rather typical way, which is similar to what you mentioned earlier. The encryption, if they do not trust the encryption, the key management system in the cloud provider, then probably they may want. Yeah.
Okay, I think I got your question already. Okay, so no problem. I think I can answer that. So there are three things when it comes to cybersecurity, right? People, process, and technology. So if we cannot, so if technology cannot fix this problem, we use people and process. So how do we use people and process to fix this? If let's say they have an encryption key with them and then we don't trust them, of course it comes to process. Like you have contract in place, you have SLA, so it means that the contract has to state very clearly that if something happens, if any breach or stuff, they have to bear the consequences. So if technology doesn't work, we'll just find a workaround, use people and process to do the control.
Okay, so I think it's really a good timing, and it's time for us to really give a big hand to Samuel for the great speech. Thanks a lot. And afterwards, we will continue to have our other sections in the coming month. Feel free to join our membership, and also if you have any suggestions, you can send to our emails, and also you can find the forms which we fill in. In coming months, there are some cloud security trainings, which are by the Hong Kong CERT for the CCSP, and also by other organizations, including CSA ourselves. There are CCSK training as well. So we will put some of those information as promotion to let you know. So if anyone are interested in joining those events, you can let me know. One additional thing which I want to share with you is I personally participate in the work for developing the CCAK, the Certificate of Cloud Audit Knowledge working team. Right now, the working team is looking for specialists who can help to review the CCAK exam questions. So if you are interested in participating to review the CCAK exam questions, you can also send email to us, or you can leave the message in the message box here, so I can contact you later on, because those are actually organized by the global the global CSA groups. So that's it for today. Thanks again for all of you to join the events, and also thanks again, Samuel, for your great presentation. I received one updates from our colleagues that the slides, I think, including the slides and also the recording, we'll put it into our website as well, with the support and authorized and endorsed by and support by Samuel. Okay, so thanks again for joining the event, and welcome you to join next time. Harry, do you have anything to cover? Okay, so I think we can pause here, and if you have any questions, anything you want to ask, you can still continue to ask here. Thank you.